I'm Brian Hyde, and I'm telling it like it is. Among the many immutable laws of the universe, we find the law of bureaucracy. And it's right up there with the law of gravity in that you're almost certain to find it anywhere bureaucracy is encountered. The law of bureaucracy simply is this. Some bureaucrat will enforce a written rule in such a way as to make the rule and the bureaucracy seem either ridiculous or tyrannical or both. And I have a perfect example of this law in action. My friends Laura and Monty Bledsoe live in Overton, Nevada. It's about 50 miles north of Las Vegas. There they operate a CSA, that's Community Supported Agriculture Farm. It's where they grow organic fruits and vegetables and raise pigs and lambs, again, organically, healthy, locally produced foods. Recently they held a farm-to-fork event with paying guests who came for an opportunity to dine on some of the foods produced right there on that farm. In fact, many of these guests had purchased shares in their CSA and had the opportunity to see their money at work, and a professional chef was hired. They had a professional kitchen trailer hired. They also had a call from the health department telling them that because this was a public event, they had to have a certain type of permit or face an enormous fine. So they got the permit. But the permit, actually they paid for the permit. The permit was supposed to be delivered by the health inspector, who showed up as their guests were arriving for this farm-to-fork dinner. The permit was not issued, and here's why. This inspector, full of petty authority and on the phone with her supervisor, said, nothing takes place until you have my permission. And when they asked, well, why is it like this? She said, because I said so. So she looked at the foods and she gave 4 specific reasons why none of the food was fit for human consumption. Number 1, some of the food in packages didn't have labels. Under code, you have 3 days from the time that food is prepared before it needs to be labeled if it's going to be sold for consumption. Secondly, some of the meat wasn't USDA certified. Remember the whole farm-to-fork thing? These were locally raised animals. Third, some of the meat wasn't yet up to temperature, although they were in the process of warming it, again, with a professional chef in a certified kitchen trailer. And fourth, the cut vegetables were actually considered a biohazard and therefore unfit for human consumption. Well, this set the party back, understandably, but that's not the worst part. The worst part came when the Bledsoes asked this inspector, can we at least put the food aside, store it until tomorrow when we have a family get-together? No, they were told. This is not fit for human consumption. Okay, next option, can we at least feed it to our pastured pigs so this doesn't go to waste? We're talking hundreds of pounds of food. After a call to the supervisor, the answer was, no, it's not fit for the pigs to eat. The only thing that food was fit for was to be dumped into garbage cans and bleach poured on it to render it not only unfit for any consumption whatsoever, they couldn't even put it into the compost pile. Fortunately, the Bledsoes are members of a farm-to-fork legal defense fund. And with their attorney on the phone, they asked the 2 magical questions that we should all understand when dealing with state bureaucrats. Do you have an arrest warrant? Do you have a search warrant? The answer was no on both counts. And the inspector was escorted from the property. Many threats later, the inspector came back demanding police arrest them or at least cite them for something. But when the police said, and what would that be? The inspector couldn't say anything. Because I said so. It wasn't strong enough. The police again escorted the inspector from the property. A dinner party was ruined. Hundreds of pounds of food were wasted. Why? Because someone had the authority to do so. Someone with the bureaucratic mindset said so. So there are 2 really important messages that we can take away from this story. Number 1, even a dog catcher can become drunk on power. In this case, we had a low-level health department bureaucrat who had her first taste of authority and liked it. Secondly, tyranny is far more possible when bureaucrats are allowed to operate under the rule of because I said so. Is that any way to live? Shouldn't we be free to make our own choices regarding how we produce our food, regarding our own health, or for that matter, how we voluntarily transact with others in regards to the food that we produce? I'm Brian Hyde, and I'm just telling it like it is.
Please. And who are you?
Mary Oaks with the Southern Nevada Health District.
And why are you here?
That's all the information you need. I do have a personal life, too.
I want you to say that the health district has told us that we can't serve meat from the farm, meat from any farm, unless it's been United States Department of Agriculture approved.
Right. I knew that.
And
the issue was that it came from across the border.
Across the border, yeah.
And because it was certified by Utah, we couldn't use it here. Because the stuff that was approved by the state of Nevada, we could use. It doesn't have to be USDA, it just has to be
Why
state.
couldn't you use the vegetables?
Because once they're cut, they're biohazard materials.
Yes.
And so,
Even though I boiled them,
and so they're forcing us to throw all the food away.
And pour bleach on it.
We can't feed it to our pigs because,
And we're not allowed to eat it.
and we're not allowed to eat it as private citizens. And we have to pour bleach on it. So.
and follow the the supposed health code requirements. I'm having to throw everything away and start cooking again.
Can you tell us more about that?
I want to be able to regain my composure before I say more about it.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll tell us if we're doing something wrong.
I'll end up signing off.
Okay.
And then you will be good and I'll be able to leave.
I really think it's appalling that we live in America and we can't make choices about the food that we're planning to eat. Especially good food, fresh, wholesome food. Perfect food. Yes. And there's people starving in America and all over the world.
It's despicable with the feast that was prepared to have the order for not a valid reason for a certified chef to destroy all this food.
Exactly.
It's just an absolute shame. Not because we're here, but because it's good quality food that has no reason to be destroyed.
It's alright for the USDA to let us all kill ourselves eating McDonald's, but this good wholesome stuff isn't alright. So, but that's such a terrible thing. We gotta do something about it.
What should we do?
Well, just collaborate like what we're doing now. Support your local farmers, and supporting local is where it's going to start, and then it'll spread. So
we've been battling with our son since he was very little, just allergies and ticks and all kinds of issues. We thought he was allergic to milk, so we were force feeding him soy ice cream, soy milk. Finally, he was old enough, we thought we'll go get the allergy test, and he is severely allergic to corn and soy. Well, as we started, you start reading packages, everything is corn and soy based. So we were watching Netflix, and it said something about corn and the state of corn, so we watched it. I am so shocked that I've lived my whole life and not read a label ever. I would have never thought about organic or where my meat came from, and when I saw what the state of the meat that we're eating, and I believe this wholeheartedly, and I know he teases me lots to have a theory about, there's so much depression, and our children are being, diagnosed as bipolar and all the medication they're being given. I honestly believe it's the state of the food and the meat that we're ingesting, and I know that, a happy cow, it's a California slogan, but I really think there's a lot to what you're eating. It's important that it lived a good, healthy life under God the way that He intended it. It's slaughtered and mutated and genetically modified. That is not what God intended us to eat, and I think that is impacting our children. You start seeing all these things happening to them, and the answer is always, we'll give them medication. Well, how about take the medication out of the meat and the food that you're forcing us to buy and eat?
And people's health is drastically. In May, I was 220 pounds. I changed the way I started eating. I went organic and continued to exercise, and I lost 40 pounds since May.
Well, I think a lot of it, the way that we were looking at we've watched all of the movies now at this point and changed all of the food that we've eaten. But when you're not eating a steroid-injected food, you don't need to eat 5,000 pounds of it.
Nope.
You're not as hungry
Once
because
you
you're
eat
not
a nice
eating
piece
steroids.
of meat,
You're getting real nutrients.
Real nutrients, and your body tells you when it's time to stop eating.
And it's not filler, because corn is really being used as a filler and everything. And I think it's really scary about, especially how they showed the cows. and what happens to them when you force feed them the food that they're not meant to eat, and the bacteria and the E. coli, and then how they have to shoot antibiotics in them to counteract that. I mean, that's what we're ingesting. We're trying to stay away from all the artificial stuff, but yet we're eating it in the meat. I mean, I don't know anyone who, if they really watched that movie or really knew the state of the meat that you're ingesting, that anyone would really eat that.
Have you, if you've tried it, if you've tried to eat organic meat only, or just organic food in general, and then you go back to eating, you'll get sick.
You can
absolutely
tell the
get sick.
You can absolutely tell
your body will like reject it. It tastes bad, and your body will reject it.
It smells differently too, and even the texture of when you're biting it. I mean.
But slowly and slowly, it's been introduced into our bodies since we were young.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I think the obesity problem in America is due to this. I think that there's a lot of issues going on with the health.
Well, explain why Mexico has Coca-Cola made with real
sugar,
cane sugar,
and it
but
tastes
America
better.
has corn syrup. Who owns America now, right? It makes you wonder who owns America, because obviously it's not Americans, right? Because we have no say-so. Obviously, we can't even eat the food we want.
Taken right off the farm, and it's people's friends. It's our friend's house.
Can't eat dinner at your friend's house.
Can't eat friends at your dinner's house. You know, can't eat dinner at your friend's house because they're serving us something that I want to eat.
Who owns America now, right? It makes you wonder who owns